It's a podcast. I like your show.
How did I get here? Welcome to the Shipe Sports Show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Shipe Sports Talk Show. We are back.
what?
The Shipe Sports Talk Show.
Okay, just checking.
We are back. We are back. Join us always in studio, our co-host and producer, Paul.
How's it going, sir?
Good. How you doing, buddy?
Excellent.
Joining across from me is Chris Cordova.
Hey, how's it going?
And joining us all the way from the sunshine state of sunny Florida, Mr. Anthony Lodicio. Thank you for joining us, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
As you also may notice, the coach is not here this evening. He had a little surgical procedure done on his foot this morning, so that's why he couldn't walk here. We couldn't get him crutches either.
Coach, what happened?
He'll be back.
I should have went to Leisure World and got him one of the little electric chairs to use, but I forgot to go over there.
God.
He's probably going to kill me right now if he's watching.
I got a wheelchair you can have.
All right, so on the show today, we're going to talk about, obviously, we got to review the Super Bowl. The Broncos are your Super Bowl champs this year. We'll talk about their matchup with Carolina, which a lot of people thought was a boring game. I thought it was exciting because I love defensive battles.
Yeah, I love football, period.
Yeah,
Anthony,
I
what do you
agree.
think about the game real quick?
I very much agree with what you said. I think that a lot of people are looking for a shootout, and that's not necessarily what a football game needs to be. And I think it was a battle of two of the best defenses that carried their teams, throughout most of the year, besides obviously Cam Newton being the MVP and being an elite quarterback most of the season. So that did help them catapult them further.
Yep, so we're going to go over that. We're also going to discuss some Washington Redskins news, maybe what they need to look for in the offseason. And with Anthony being a Giants fan, which is in the division, he can give us some insight on the New York Giants, which we could look forward to, for next season. Talk some national news. We are getting close to baseball season. We're about 2 weeks from pitchers and catchers. Mets fan over there in the Florida state for some reason, not Tampa Bay. Just messing with you, buddy. He'll give us some insight on the Mets. And then finally, arena football in D.C. Could it happen? It may happen. So let's just jump right into it. Let's jump right into Super Bowl 50. Broncos won 24-10. The score I really don't think reflects how big of a physical game this was. I mean, the Broncos, they scored that late touchdown, obviously. We all saw the expression on Eli. Eli probably gave the expression of the world on what everyone thought about the Super Bowl this week was. We can all agree the way he looked. But let's recap on what the Broncos did. And that's what no other team did during the playoffs, which was put pressure on Cam Newton. Obviously, Von Miller coming off the edge with DeMarcus Ware really gave him some troubles. We saw, the strip fumble touchdown, the very first, possession that the Carolina had. And really from there, it was all Broncos defense. Manning came into this game probably knowing he just had to do just enough to win it for him, and he pretty much did. 13 for 23, 141 yards, 1 interception. He had, I believe, the 1 fumble loss. C.J. Anderson, pretty much carried the offense, 90 yards, 1 touchdown. I'm sure you did fantasy. Paul, Anthony, I'm sure we're all wondering where the hell was this during the season from C.J. Anderson. Every fantasy owner that had him draft him in the top 10 are probably shooting themselves in the foot now, and now he shows up. Broncos passing offense, where was Denarius Thomas? And we're going to go over that a little bit. So first, Chris, your thoughts on the Broncos?
First of all, definitely got to congratulate the Broncos. It was a tough season, going from someone, having a legend like Peyton Manning starting the season. I'm sure a lot of people drafted Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. That offense was kind of lost, in the whole beginning of the season. But it doesn't matter now. They won the Super Bowl. Their defense carried the team the whole year, and obviously we saw that their defense carried them in this final game. One thing I saw, which was a kind of pretty cool stat, was they compared Peyton Manning's stats from this past weekend, to John Elway's 98 title. Mm-hmm. They're almost identical. 0 touchdowns, 1 pick each.
Well, you got to think, for that team of the Broncos, they relied on Terrell Davis.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a completely different game. Terrell Davis had 3 touchdowns and 150 yards or something. But still, it was kind of funny or kind of cool how they compared both his statistics and basically saying you don't have to have an elite quarterback throwing for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns to win a Super Bowl. There's so many other facets of the game, how you can win this game. And this week, if Denver hadn't had those 2 turnovers and had given their offense such a short field, I don't know if they would have won by this many points. I think it would have come down to, it could have gone to overtime. It could have come down to just, the missed field goal by Gano early in the game. It definitely was a field position game, and really that's how they won the game.
Anthony, your thoughts on the Broncos?
Yeah, I very much agree with what Chris has already said, but I think the biggest takeaway was his defense wins championships. The two biggest games of the year and back-to-back games, especially Von Miller, like he mentioned, came up huge against the Patriots, comes up huge against the Panthers. And to be honest with you, I think that the biggest thing that you couldn't anticipate in this game was the emotional factor. And they were playing for more than just a championship. They were playing for, a legend of the game and a friend and a mentor to a lot of those players on the team. And I think that was a huge contribution to them winning that game. And I think Cam Newton's going to be great for the future. I don't think it's anything to worry about. I just think that it was just a lot against the Panthers in that game that they couldn't come over. And in the end, the defense was a deciding factor in a Super Bowl title for the Broncos.
Let's go with that emotional thing you just said for Peyton. Do you think this game had the same emotional value the Broncos had to when the Ravens had their emotional with Ray Lewis? Can you almost compare to that, where the Ravens, once Lewis announced his retirement, they just shifted into a different gear? Maybe the Broncos, knowing that this could be in for Manning, maybe they could have shifted the same type of gear. I mean, what do you two think about that?
Go ahead, Anthony.
I think they're very similar, but I think they're two definitely differently dynamic teams.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas you had, the offense of the Broncos wasn't very lackluster throughout the season. They were decent with Osweiler. They did pretty decent. Like you said, the run game was a thing that was not there for most of the season. But I think if you compare them to when Flacco was there, it was never really a question of you still rather have Peyton, in that situation, not Flacco. But I do think the defenses in both situations were outstanding in both seasons. And I think that Ray Lewis being the leader on the defense and a very vocal one at that definitely made sure that team was extra motivated to go out there and win that title for him. As in the same thing with the offense, just a little bit of a different dynamic of how they lead teams between Ray Lewis and Peyton.
Man, I would have done anything to get. I wonder if they mic'd him up. Peyton. That would be awesome to hear what
I didn't
he's
see
like.
anything with mic'd up during the Super Bowl. I don't think they.
DeMarcus Ware was.
DeMarcus Ware was.
Yeah, they brought it up once, and he was getting pretty fired up between him and Vaughn, I heard.
Oh, I bet. But I mean, he waited how many years? 10, 11 years to be there?
I'm happy for DeMarcus.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
But going back to the point what you said in terms of the emotional aspect, I mean, they had the meeting, I think, what was it, the night before? It was Peyton Manning and DeMarcus Ware were up there talking to the team. I mean, the way
you didn't know if DeMarcus was coming back either. I mean, he's up there in age.
The way they made it sound, it was like, this is his last rodeo, essentially. So I would have been out there. I would have played 300%. I would have done anything I had to do to get that ring for Peyton Manning. That's one of my favorite football players of all time. I mean, his legacy is complete. There's nothing that I would think that could tarnish it.
Do you think it's the do you think it's the perfect football career?
No. Yeah. You don't go 2-2 in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's the perfect
career, but he did have a pretty darn good career. I mean,
I'm happy he finally tied Eli with Super Bowl rings. It just felt no offense to Eli, but it didn't feel right for Eli to have 2 and Peyton have just 1. I mean, you have to admit, with the accolades Peyton has, it almost feels like it's natural for him to maybe even tie Eli or have more. I mean, Anthony, I know you're a Giants fan, but what were your thoughts when everyone kept saying that Peyton should have more than Eli? What are your thoughts on that as a Giants fan?
And I think as a Giants fan, especially, but just in general as a sports fan, there's no doubt. I mean, obviously, I love the contributions Eli's made to the team, but it's Peyton's always the better quarterback of the 2. 100%. Eli could go on to win 4 Super Bowls. He might be better in the postseason and in the Super Bowl, but that doesn't make him a better quarterback. In my opinion, Peyton Manning is the best regular season quarterback I've ever physically witnessed to watch. And I think he is just a class act on and off the field, as they mentioned throughout. And humility is the word they kept using. I think that he is just a fantastic class act, but I won't take that away from Eli being a Giants fan. But I know how people like to rag on him when they saw his face there at the end, but Peyton has come to his defense and said that was just, Eli being Eli. But I do think that
Eli was probably just hammered, maybe.
No, he was not.
Eli has the mentality of just always being in the game, even when he's not playing, is basically what Peyton said, and he knew that anything could happen. They still had to get the 2-point conversion, and that was still up in the air. The game wasn't over, and I think Eli was relieved, but he still knew there was a lot to play as a quarterback in that situation.
Yeah, the game was not over. The game certainly was not over. Technically, no. He was thinking of all the scenarios of how basically Carolina could come back, and the final whistle had not blown yet.
He's thinking like a quarterback.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Speaking of someone who played a lot of emotions and probably almost screwed the game for the Broncos beginning, how about Talib? I mean, what was he? I mean, they're talking about maybe suspension for the first part of the season for that face mask. But I mean, what was going on with him?
I don't know about all that.
Now, the first penalty, the little trash talking, I think the refs should have probably maybe let that go because, I mean, it's a Super Bowl, your emotion running high, courts, you're going to go back and forth. I think the first one, they should have let go. But the other ones, I don't know what he's thinking.
I
mean, he probably had, 4 penalties just on himself?
I don't know if it was 4.
Maybe, I think 3, maybe. But
throughout the game, maybe. But in that drive, that was...
Yeah.
No, I meant throughout the game.
He had 3 in, like, the first quarter, I think they were saying.
But
and
I think the first one was a little bit silly.
The first one was silly, I think, and I think it just came down to, like, what we were saying. You were talking about how Ray Lewis, if that's Ray Lewis on that defense, Talib's pulled to the sideline immediately, and he tells him you got to knock that kind of stuff off. That's not going to happen in the Super Bowl.
I'm sure DeMarcus
now, in
may have
defense
said
of him, on the face mask call, yes, it was a pretty blatant and it was a very bad face mask. But when you think of it in the grand scheme of things, you're thinking, do I cost my team a yard or do I cost my team 7 points?
He did say,
and I think that's where his head was
at
the time. Do I think it was the right move and a classy move? Absolutely not. But I think in the heat of the moment, he saw either he's going to break free and he's going to score right now, or I can give my team a chance, only losing a yard because they're inside the 10 on a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So all right, now let's jump to Carolina, and let's just talk about Cam Newton for a second. How he probably looked the most uncomfortable he did all year. Now people keep saying, they went 15-1. First off, the division they were in were not the best of divisions. The defenses, honestly, you look at the defenses in that division, they're horrible. The Saints, the Falcons, the Buccaneers, they're not the best defenses in the world. So it's almost like he never really faced one. But, yeah, he faced Seattle, torched them. Second half, he didn't do too good.
Well, he didn't really torch them. No. That was a close game up until the final minute.
That's what I'm saying, like the first half, he was doing fine. The second half, the Seahawks, something clicked in them. Arizona was
wait. Are we talking the playoffs?
Yeah.
Oh.
What?
I was talking the regular season.
No, I'm talking through the playoffs where he faced Seattle and Arizona.
All right.
I was with you, Chris, on that one. So
yeah, I was like, I mean,
no, I'm talking about in the playoffs against Seattle. The first half they went up big, and then Seattle obviously almost came back to win the game. Arizona was just out the water, but then he came against a team with 2 dominant pass rushers and Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, and he couldn't do anything. I mean, you saw there was a lot of false starts on the Carolina because these offensive linemen, they were trying to get a jump start because they were getting beat all day. And when I think now you look at teams next year are going to realize, look, if you make Cam uncomfortable, he does not look like an MVP type player. I hate to say that, but I mean, a lot of quarterbacks are like that. When you make them uncomfortable, they're not that good. And I mean, he just looked god awful. I mean, the fumbles, and then real quick, the one fumble where it looked like he stepped back. I have no problem with he doing that. He came out and said, look, he didn't feel right going for it. And if you look at his legs and everything, they were in the worst position they could be in to where he could have gotten caught very easily. Yes, I know it's Super Bowl. You should go for everything.
It's the Super Bowl.
I know it is, man, but he's looking at the long-term effects. And you know what? He comes out and says, look, my leg if you watch the replay, it doesn't look like a good position for him whatsoever even going for it. I mean, what do you think about that play?
I think you go for it. I really think you go for it. You may never get back there ever again. This could be your only shot at glory. You go for it.
Anthony, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a tough situation, but to me, I think it just spoke volumes about the Panthers team in that game because that's your leader. I feel like he just checked out at that point. He was like, "There's no point in me jumping in there." They felt defeated. Is almost what I got from him not going after it. I understand that you got Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware and these linemen all going towards the ball, but the ball's on the ground and you just dropped it. You got to try and do something to make an attempt at it there. You're in the Super Bowl, like Chris said, and nothing's guaranteed about going back.
Did they comment on that? Did he comment on that?
Yeah, he came out and said he didn't go for it because he felt like his legs were in a really bad position. If you go back and look at it, you can see he looks like he's in an awkward position where if he could dive or something, it looked like his legs could easily be, taken out very easily.
I thought my first initial reaction was that he how when the ball's bouncing, he thought maybe it was gonna bounce back up at him, and so he was just kind of but I guess
they did a meme where they instead of a football they put the Super Bowl trophy out there.
I haven't seen that one, but that's kind of funny.
I think what really hurt this offense was Corey Brown was tearing up whoever was on him. I think it was Talib covered him a couple times. He was just tearing it up, and then when you saw with Philly, I don't know why they call him Philly Brown.
Philly Brown's his nickname. Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Yeah. When he got hurt, the passing game really started to struggle. I mean, Olsen could never get it going all game. He had 4 catches, 41 yards, but he wasn't really as big as he's been all year. It just felt like Cam just couldn't get anything going once Brown went out. It seems like he didn't have a reliable threat. And, yes, they went 15-1. Yes, they're putting up points, but Cam did all this with that number one guy with Greg Olsen. You know, if you had Benjamin the whole year, part of been a lot more spectacular offense because not only the defense has to worry about Olsen as Benjamin. So I think not having Benjamin the whole year, I know we're talking Super Bowl, but through the whole scheme of things, not having Benjamin really hurt them throughout the year because once teams figured out, let's just go on Olsen. I mean,
I don't think so because this is not a pass first team. I mean, and that's exactly what Chris Harris said.
They had no choice though. I mean, they're
no. They've never been a pass.
I mean, the
team.
Super Bowl, they almost had to go to it though. At one
But
point.
that was the whole game plan of the Denver Broncos defense. Chris Harris said it from not from the beginning. Obviously, you're not going to give away your game plan, but afterwards he said that was the game plan. We want to shut down the run because that's what we want to do. You want to force Cam Newton to throw the ball, and that's what they did. And then we see that he was not comfortable. He didn't have rhythm. You know, even from the very first play, he overthrew a wide open receiver. At that point, I knew this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good. This is not going to be good for Cam Newton. This is not going to be good for the passing attack. So I think that's exactly what you got to do in the future. And if Cam Newton had, his number one receiver, Calvin Benjamin, would it have made a difference this season? I don't think so. I really don't.
Anthony, what do you think about the whole, Newton this year, maybe having Benjamin can make a little bit of a difference or, his demeanor throughout the whole game?
I think Benjamin makes a difference, but that was a great point made that Chris Harris said because you think about it, if you look at those three corners with Talib, Harris, and Roby, I mean, arguably that's the three best corners any team has as a tandem across the league. So
and you got TJ Ward behind them.
Exactly.
So,
it's safety. It's not like, they got some big stars in the secondary. So they want to get that ball in the air, especially when you got unproven receivers like Corey Brown and Ted Ginn Jr., who on most teams is not starting.
Not reliable.
And at best he's a slot receiver at best on most other teams. I think Kelvin Benjamin changes the dynamic. But I think they would have just ended up, they would have put the safety over top, and they would have put Talib on him all game. They would have just shut him down. I think the linebackers and the safeties are doing a great job on keeping Olsen from becoming a factor. So I think that, like Chris said, the defense played exactly what they wanted. They played right into their hand. They stopped the run, and Newton wasn't able to really do too much. There was a couple plays where he was able, to make those 11 or 12-yard runs, but he was not nearly as effective in the running game as he had been throughout the year. Up to that point.
Yeah, they were able to contain him pretty well.
Stewart didn't do anything. Well, Stewart also got hurt.
Stewart got hurt.
Which really, affected him throughout the whole game. You could see he wasn't the same guy. So, once Stewart went out the game, the run game was just gone because Tolbert couldn't hold the ball to save his life.
Yeah, that was a big issue in the beginning. I think the whole first half kind of set the tone, and if you look throughout the whole season, basically, the Panthers played from ahead pretty much in every game they were in. They were always in the lead. They were saying that was the first time, too, the Panthers had started off any playoff game behind. They were never trailing in a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a whole nother thing, and it might just be in that mindset that they were just playing from behind all game, and they just could never get back in front.
They weren't used to it.
Yeah.
They weren't used to it. They weren't used to playing that kind of gameplay. That game flow is not their flow. That's not their rhythm. So they were completely out of rhythm the whole game.
Really, the best player on the Panthers field there, it was probably Luke.
Yeah, Kuechly, yeah.
Yeah,
Kuechly,
he kept it going to the end. It was, let's go about what people say about the game. And it irritates me when people say, oh, it's boring. I didn't like, I guess it's people who want a shootout. But, for NFL fans, this is a great game. Defensive battle, two of the best defenses, going at it. I loved it. I personally, last year's Super Bowl, it came down to the wire. That'll go down one of the greatest. But I think this one, just what it was about with Peyton, the defenses, what it meant, even though they weren't undefeated, they were still, they only lost one game.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was still great. And the way the Broncos rebounded from their season, they were at one point, it looked like the Chiefs were going to come out of nowhere and win this division. Peyton was starting off slow. Everyone thought, this isn't going to be a Broncos team. But the way they rallied around their entire defense was just, it was a great season. And I can honestly think that the Broncos, wherever they go with quarterback or somewhat, I think they could actually potentially return to the Super Bowl. And the same for Carolina. They're going to have a completely different style team with Kelvin Benjamin back. Completely different. I think, with Benjamin there, I think they can add more to the passing game. Maybe you get a secondary receiver to go along with Benjamin because obviously, like we said, Corey Brown, Ted Ginn really aren't probably number twos on other teams anywhere else. They're probably number threes. So maybe draft.
Right, it was the situation that caused them to be starters.
Yeah,
right
maybe
now.
A draft, maybe free agency you're looking at, and there's no reason Carolina can't get back to where they are. I mean, Chris, and then we'll go to Anthony. What are your thoughts on where these two teams could be at next year?
I completely agree. I think both of these teams are playoff teams next year, and that's because of their defenses. I mean, and we saw how dominant they were pretty much this whole postseason, and like you said, Luke Kuechly is the heart of that defense, and he's coming back. He's not leaving anytime soon, and he is not just a great linebacker; he's just a great playmaker. We saw in that last game, not the last game, but was it the conference championships? I think did he take 2 back for a touchdown? I think it was at least 1. I know he took back for a touchdown.
No, you mean the divisional round?
Maybe it was divisional round.
Just against the Seattle. He had that interception.
I mean, he's just I would put him in the same league as J.J. Watt in terms of a defensive player, in terms of how much of a difference he makes. And then going on the other side of the football, not the other side of the football, the other team. When you have Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware as your 2 edge rushers, I mean, that's a tandem that's going to get to anyone at any time. So I definitely agree. These will be postseason teams next year.
Anthony?
Barring any injuries, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Benjamin coming back will be a big get if he comes back healthy and is in the rookie form that he was in his first season. Mm-hmm. I think free agency is going to be a huge deal for both teams, though. If you look at the Broncos, not only is Von Miller a free agent, though, Brandon Marshall, the linebacker. Mm-hmm. Danny Trevathan is a free agent. So they got 3 people right there. And there was another defensive lineman that they had. I think it was Malik Jackson's also a free agent. And there's a couple other ones. And then you look at Carolina's side. They also have a couple free agents, most notably Josh Norman, who is their number 1 corner currently. And then I think you just look at the scheme of all these other teams that are younger, especially like the Raiders that are in the Broncos division with Carr and Cooper and Murray. And these are teams that have a lot of cap space that in the offseason are going to attract free agents. And you got people out there like Norman I mentioned and like Von Miller that if the teams can't lock them up, might go somewhere else where they think they have a chance to win that can give them the money that they want. And the biggest question is Denver going to re-sign Brock Osweiler if we do get Peyton Manning to retire, or do they let Osweiler go and they go in a completely different direction? But I definitely think that both teams, barring any major losses and like injuries as well, I think are both playoff bound again next year.
All right, great. All right, so that's it. The NFL season's wrapped up.
No.
Yeah, I know. No more football until September. But hey, we got the draft coming up. You know, my team's got the number 1 pick, so we'll see where the Tennessee Titans decide to do with that.
I think they should draft a quarterback.
I don't think so.
Who do you think right now, a couple months out of the draft, that they should take number 1?
See, I like what Delaney Walker said, where it's like, dude, you got to stop drafting all these young offensive linemen. Sooner or later, you got to start trying to develop your own. You know, our running game is god-awful, and the Heisman winner looks pretty darn good. But I feel like Henry could drop in the 2nd round. I don't know how the recent state of Alabama running backs haven't looked too good lately. Trent Richardson and Lacey starting to get fattened up and not playing good. But probably it's probably going to be the offensive lineman from Ole Miss. It's probably going to be him.
Yeah, you think they take number 1 pick on a lineman?
I think so, but I'd rather have Derrick Henry. I'd like to get a running back in there that can bruise it around a little bit because our run game sucks. And maybe you need an option for Mariota. You know, if you don't have a running back and you have to throw the ball, he's going to get killed.
Fair enough.
So right now we're going to shift gears. We're going to still talk some football, but we're going to go into the Redskins, and Anthony's going to give us some insight on the Giants on what to look for next year and what they need to do. Obviously, I think all 3 of us, and maybe Paul also, all 4 of us can all agree the Redskins need to sign Kirk Cousins. I mean, can you all agree on that?
Absolutely.
You like that?
I had that. I don't have that sound effect right now, but I had it. I'm testing out a different board, but usually it would be played right now.
Chris?
Oh, yeah. I agree.
And Anthony, do you think the Redskins need to re-sign Kirk?
I mean, does it make sense? Go ahead, sorry.
As a Giants fan, I'd love to see him walk, but I think as a football fan, the Redskins need to lock him up long term, yes.
Chris, are you finally feeling the Kirk Cousins momentum? You finally feeling it?
I don't think Chris has come around.
I'm not.
If he wins a division title next year, will you come around?
What do you mean a division title?
If he wins another division title.
I think it depends on how he plays.
He played good. He was the best quarterback in like the last 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay, but for one season, how many quarterbacks had one great season and then just completely fall off the face of the earth?
I can name one. His name is Robert Griffin III.
Okay, there's one. There's a lot. I
Yeah,
think
there's
he
a
has to
lot.
prove himself over several years, at least 2 to 3 years before we
Well,
say.
here's
that
the
we
thing.
needs to
Here's the
be here
problem.
For 10 years.
You ain't gonna get him for 1 year. So they're gonna sign him for probably 3 to 4 years.
All right,
So
but
you're gonna have to deal with
Chris
that.
is saying like 10-year deal here.
No.
No.
No,
I'm
but
just-
what I'm saying is that you're waiting for him to show something in order for you to put a 10-year deal in front of him.
I think he needs
Right?
to prove himself.
I don't think
again.
any quarterback will ever get a 10-year deal. In
No,
front of him.
yeah,
No, but I mean, so like, how many years would you sign him up for, like right now? Because obviously,
right now probably 2 to 3.
All right, well that's fair.
Because
think
I mean,
3. Lock
what?
him up. Lock him up 3 years. You gotta do it.
I think
man.
that's fine. 3 years is fine.
I mean, hopefully they finally found a franchise quarterback that can.
Right.
Do it. Sad part is RG3 may still be in the division that year.
Yeah, it's possible.
He may be going to Anthony. Where do you think he may end up? I mean, I'm guessing Dallas, but what do you think?
That was my.
I think that he ends up in LA with the Rams.
Oh,
That's certainly an option.
it's so
too.
weird. Someone saying that end up in
Yeah.
LA. It took me a second. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
LA Rams.
It's so weird. No, and then the LA Chargers too.
No, I think
Yeah.
there's still.
No,
there's
I think
Chargers-
they
no.
have one more season.
They
I
have
heard
one more season.
2017.
One more season, but they're going there, so we're gonna have the LA Chargers.
Oh
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Goodell's still working on it, I think, to try and keep him in San Diego, but it's looking like they're leaning towards LA.
And LA Rams.
Yeah.
It's just weird for someone to say that. You gotta get used to it. Jeff Fisher, man, love the
Yeah,
guy.
and I think with Gurley in the backfield, if RG3 can go there, and he has already a steady running back, I think that definitely helps him.
Yeah, but continue on the Redskins. Running backs going to be a big issue. Morris, I don't think Morris is coming back. I don't know if he does come back. They're not going to want to pay him that much, is what happened this year.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Jones has shown he fumbles a couple times a game, so they may be looking for free agency. That you see. I mean, C.J. Anderson's supposed to be a free agent. Matt Forte, Arian Foster is supposedly supposed to be
Yeah.
off the market. I'm sure the Giants. I'm sure you could possibly be looking for a running back scenario. I'm assuming. Your running back situation was iffy this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think in both situations on the Redskins and the Giants, they need to just, for a whole season, they have to commit to one guy. And I think that's the biggest
yeah.
thing the Giants had an issue with identity-wise was, we were going with 4 running back committee. And, that's never going to be successful.
No,
4.
two at the most.
You have to have one. The Giants did it one year back a long time ago, but that was because the 3 guys that they used, when they used that, they all had 1,000 yards. It was Derek Ward, Brandon Jacobs, and Ahmad Bradshaw. And at the time, none of them were, big names. And if you look now, all 3 of them really, outside of Bradshaw, aren't even in the league anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they really didn't amount to, much success. That was more a testament to the offensive line. But I think the Redskins with Matt Jones, I think that's a great pick. I think Thompson will be a good third down back if Morris decides not to return. I think it just has to be. And on the Giants side, I think with Rashad Jennings making him the lead back, I think you just need to feature one guy in an offense and then let that go from there. And then if 6 games through the season, the guy's, not able to do it, getting the bulk of the carries, 20 to 25 at least a game, then yeah, you look elsewhere. But I think it's too early, especially on Jones' situation, that you already look in free agency for a new running back because you're basically doing what you did to Morris this past season when he really didn't even lose the job necessarily because he was playing pretty well, I think, up to that point in his career. And then you already supplemented, Jones in over him. So I think if you're going to do it, you go forward with Jones.
Now, I think receivers and tight end for both teams are pretty much set. Larry Donnell is a pretty good young receiver. Jordan Reed, what more can you say about that guy? He's
If he can stay healthy, he's a top 3.
He's a top 3. I
Yeah.
think he's up there. I think you could put him up there with Gronk.
Yeah.
I think if
in
he
the
stays
elite
healthy, he
level.
could supplement number 1. Yeah.
I think, when you talk top 3, I think right now you're talking Gronk, Olsen, and Jordan Reed. I hate to say this. I think Jimmy Graham is gone from that conversation because of where he went.
Just
and
because of the
he didn't.
the team.
I don't know why he even. I guess because he thought he could get a ring. But it's like, dude, you're not going to be featured in this offense at all. They don't pass to the tight end rarely.
That's fine. I think it was about the ring. I don't think it was about I won 100 catches a season. I think it was definitely about the ring.
No, didn't work out too well for him.
No, but if he stayed in the Saints, it would have been the same.
It would have.
Same thing.
But it would have been nice for Breeze to have someone to go along with Cooks and everything.
Yeah.
So I think receiver set. Obviously Deshaun needs to come back. Pierre, you got Jordan Crowder. You got Odell. You got
The
Victor.
Giants are in a lot of trouble
You think?
on receiver, yeah, because
You really
Cruz
think?
is
Other than Odell,
Cruz hasn't played in almost 2 years.
Yeah, other than
You look
Odell,
back,
we really don't have a number 2 right now.
Yeah, Ruben
Randall,
Randall's a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Draft.
the Giants luckily made a lot of moves to cut salary, and they're sitting on about $60 million in cap space. I love the idea of Alshon Jeffrey on the other side. If that comes to fruition, is a whole nother
wow,
statement.
I didn't know that.
Wow, that would
Um,
be incredible.
Are they looking at him right now, or is that just a
I've heard
top,
I've heard
top
rumors
free agent that's out there?
that they would like to go after that. There's a possibility that they cut Cruz as well because he's due $6 million, and since he hasn't been on the field in 2 years, considering that their initial injury was for his patellar tendon, and now it's a calf injury, they're just not too confident. Since he's on the other side, he's over 30 now. They're a little worried about his legs and his health for the long term.
Dude,
Because Beckham can only do so much, and Larry Donnell's actually a restricted free agent as well this year.
Oof.
So
you got to resign
their core
him.
is yeah.
God,
you know, a
Jeffries
little-
and Beckham, dude, that's.
If Jeffrey can stay healthy, I think that's a huge get for because right now Beckham still is going to face double coverage with anyone on the other side.
Regardless,
But if you can get Jeffrey on his side, it might give you at least that little extra chance that Beckham gets single coverage every once in a while.
Oh yeah,
That'd be great
both,
with Jeffrey. I mean, that'd be like when Jeffrey had Brandon Marshall opposite
Yeah,
of
they're
him.
both legit
it'd be
wide
the same
receiver
thing.
ones, definitely.
And then offensive line side, and the Redskins' offensive line improved, but they need more, I think, stability, more like number one guys. You saw when they got hurt, they were number two guys, but they performed good. Giants, how do you feel about your offensive line?
Like I was saying, that the cuts they just made, the Giants are looking. It's similar to like you said, they need to stop. They always draft offensive linemen in the first round. The last 2 years they went with Justin Pugh, and then this past year Eric Flowers. The guy Will Beatty that they signed, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago now. They just cut him because he was the starting left tackle but couldn't stay healthy. Schwartz, they cut him. So I mean, right now you're looking at Eric Flowers, Justin Pugh, and Weston Richburg, who are three relatively young guys. I think they're 26 and younger. I think all three of them, and that's your left tackle, left guard, and center. And then on the right side, right now they're going with veterans that really just shouldn't be in that position anymore, with like a Marshall Newhouse and John Jerry. So I think that's another position that they're going to have to look to in free agency, because I think they need a veteran on that offensive line to keep those young guys there, because Flowers is in a big position to cover Eli's blind side in only a second year.
All right, we'll jump to defense. And I think for the Redskins, you got to re-sign Terrace Knight. And he was on a one-year deal. You got to re-sign him because, I mean, you talked about him. He really brought that defensive line together in terms of going out and doing activities. They went to Caps game, national games. They went to a haunted house. So he really got that defensive line together. The main thing for the Redskins will be their secondary, because, their secondary, we can both agree was not the best. You got Brashard Breeland, and you got Brashard Breeland. It's pretty much what you got. The linebacking core for the Redskins, the depth we talked about from the beginning of the year is not good. And I think their main thing is Gillette was on a one-year deal, right?
Yeah.
Bring him back. Because can you imagine what that line would be like with him and Kerrigan on opposite sides? I'm sure as a Giants fan, you would not want Eli to face against those two guys, would you?
Absolutely not, especially with this offensive line right now.
Yeah.
Because they would have. I think the defense definitely would have been a lot better if he had not tore his Achilles in training camp. I mean, it sucks when you sign a one-year deal and you go down in training camp. It's like crap. I'm trying to get more money from a one-year deal, and then this happens. So Chris, what do you think about the defensive side for the Skins?
I think it's like you said, got to re-sign Gillette, because I think it's going to be very exciting to see what him and Kerrigan can do together. But mainly for me, I think it has to do with the secondary. Obviously, I think it starts up front. If we can get the defensive line, if we can start getting pressure on the quarterback, that does, ease up a little pressure on the secondary, but we still need a secondary. I think that's going to be our primary concern on the defense for sure.
And what about your defensive side of your defense, Anthony?
I think that the Giants, honestly, you all pretty much know, they're awful. They're ranked 32nd in the league. I mean, it can't get much worse for them. There was at times where I wish that, some of the, a high school team was the defense there. It was pretty awful considering, too, on top of that they brought back Spagnuolo, who's the same guy that they won the Super Bowl with in the past, that had that same defense, and they were hoping to catch that kind of, lightning in a bottle again with him as the coordinator. I really think that they have a lot of holes to fill, and Pierre Paul's a free agent. I don't really hope that they bring him back. Amukamura is a free agent who I do hope they do bring back, because otherwise you just leave Rogers Cromartie. And I just think that the defense is a lot of pieces away from being successful. in my opinion, at least.
Well, I'm looking at the mock drafts now, real quick, and they both touch on what we agree. They said the Redskins, their mock right now is Kendall Fuller from Virginia Tech, which would be a great cornerback. I mean, he'd be great, especially, another Virginia Tech guy coming in to replace the old Virginia Tech guy and for D'Angelo Hall. And for you, they have the linebacker from Notre Dame, Smith, being projected. And they said even though he's hurt, that'd be the steal of the draft, especially where your position's at in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it never hurts to take, maybe you may take an injured player in the draft, but look at Gurley. Look what he developed into. I mean, it never, it always, you always got to take chances. So that's our little preview just for the week for the Skins. We'll always have that every week, keep up to date what's going on, the Kirk Cousin development. Right now, you hate to say this, but the clock is ticking on when RG3 will be released. Monday was the first day he could be released, so the clock is ticking now to when RG3 will be gone. Mm-hmm. So now it's just a waiting game, I think. A lot of people around the NFL are waiting to see what happens. You got the announcers always talk about it. The stupid guys on First Take always talk about it. So we got hey, I hate those guys. I dislike Skip Bayless. I dislike Stephen A. Smith. Just their opinions are just ridiculous. Anthony, what do you think about those two?
Very outspoken individuals.
Yeah.
We'll keep it short and sweet on that one.
All right. So right now we're going to jump to we'll do baseball last since we'll stay in the football. Let's talk about some arena football. Big news that the owner of the Caps and Wizards, Ted Leonis, is trying to bring a team back to D.C. The reason I say back is before we even knew about all this, they used to be called the Washington Commodores. They played the old Capitol Center. I'm sure. Did you know that place?
Yeah.
Okay. All I remember.
What are you
is,
trying to say?
Hey, I'm just saying you're up there. Hey, I see the gray hairs, man. That's all I'm saying. The only thing I remember used to be, all I remember was the MCI Center. I remember that back in the day before it became Verizon. So I think it'd be kind of cool. It'd be something different to go watch. Like I said, if it's in the Verizon Center, you got the Metro access, easier to get to. And I think it'd be something different to Washington, D.C. Now, I know people are like, well, will they bring in fans? I'll tell you what, if it's football and it's, relatively, I think the tickets won't be as expensive as
not
friggin'
as FedEx.
Dan Snyder making us pay $100 to sit in the nosebleed, for God's sakes.
I mean, the tickets would definitely be cheaper, and I think that's going to attract a lot of people.
And I think the action would be pretty good. So Anthony has actually had season tickets to arena football. Tell us about the atmosphere of arena football games, what it's like in there. I know the game is a lot different. They have the little running start with the wide receivers and everything. But what's the atmosphere like in arena football?
Oh, so actually, it also is it a little bit more like family. Like, would I be able to take my 5-year-old and my 9-year-old to go watch an arena football game, or do you get the same amount of the same type of crowds you would in an NFL game?
I think it's a little bit of both. When I went, I was younger. I was a kid. I mean, I'm talking. I had season tickets when the New York Dragons had Aaron Garcia, Jeff Garcia's brother, as the quarterback. So we're talking at least about 10 to 12 years ago. So I was younger at the time. I think it's a very different atmosphere, like you said, because it's different rules. You have that running in motion. The out of bounds is really not there. You basically have to knock the guy over the wall.
Pretty
It's
much.
very interactive with the fans. Some other cool, it's only a 50-yard field.
Mm-hmm. So it's a very high-paced game.
So exactly, there's very little room to make those quick plays. It's a very hard-hitting, type of system, and it comes at a time when, like you said, there's no more football to talk about, but there is going to be football to talk about for the football fans that still want to watch something, because you still have arena now going on for these next couple months leading into to give us at least that little reprieve of not having football come back until August.
I'd be all in. I'd go watch a couple games. If it's cheaper than Dan Snyder charging us, I'd go watch it.
I'd totally go watch.
Watch. Ted Leonis will be a better football owner than Dan Snyder, and they'll be like, hey, you should buy the Redskins next. Watch. That's what's going to happen.
I'd love to see a lingerie football team.
Oh, my God.
Hey,
Ridiculous.
come on. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
I'm not disagreeing.
we should petition Leonsis and be like, hey, if you're bringing this in, you might as well bring
right?
the lingerie in too.
I swear, there was a famous football player's daughter who I think was in one, and I can't think of who I think Theismann's daughter or something like that.
I don't know.
Something like that. Some famous player's daughter was like a quarterback or something. All right, so we're going to shift now to the baseball aspect, and we're going to talk some Nationals and some New York Mets. They're reigning division champ. Yeah, whatever. Anthony's a Mets fan. I was very.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know if I want him to wear that shirt on our DC-based show.
That's all right.
But,
What you want?
Let's talk about the Nationals. We haven't really got to talk about the offseason moves this year. First off, Jordan Zimmerman, Doug Fister, two of the people in the start rotation is gone. Enter Taylor Rourke is back. Joe Ross, and I think Joe Ross has proved himself to be a pretty good major league pitcher. Came as a rookie last year, was really just thrown right into it, and he did a pretty good job. Ian Desmond's gone from D.C., Denard Span. So there's going to be a lot of new faces in D.C. We have Daniel Murphy coming over from the Mets. So we'll see how he goes into our offense. Hopefully he continues what he did during the postseason for you guys. I really would love that, by the way.
Was this before or after he let us down in the World Series?
Before, when he was on that, what was
Okay.
it, 6 games? Was it 6 or 5 games in a row he had the home run?
I want to say he had like 8 or 9 home runs. I
In a
think, or
row?
something. It was some. It wasn't that. I think he had in the postseason. It was something. It was
In the
close to
postseason, he had
Beltran's
like
record.
something. He had a lot in a row. The Nationals really, the main thing was their bullpen. They went out and signed a couple more respectable arms in the bullpen, trading away also Drew Storm, keeping Palpabon, which was a little, I guess, second guessed by a lot of fans after the incident with Bryce Harper, but I guess they patched things up, I guess, or whatever. Did you ever see that?
Of course I did.
Yeah, the little choking incident that was all over the main page of the Washington Post. But, I mean, the thing with the Nationals is they went after 3 big hitters and swung and missed. They struck out. They went after Jason Hayward, who went to the Cubs. Justin Upton went to Tigers, right? Anthony, was it Tigers?
Yes. Yes. Justin Upton's the Tigers.
And then
Yes.
Cespedes decided to stay with you guys, which I give respect because he did it out of loyalty. He said he wanted to come back and took less money, so I respect him for that. I love when players do that. But this year for the Nationals, I think Anthony can agree from a opposing fan standpoint, someone else has to step up besides Bryce Harper, and people have to stay healthy. Went through a lot of the year without Anthony Rendon, who arguably is our second best contact hitter. Denard Span basically almost never saw the field. Worth off and on, he's old now. Wilson Ramos, Zimmerman. There was a funny stat last year that this team, the full starting lineup, only saw the field together twice throughout the whole year.
Wow.
So really only twice. I mean, that affects you a little bit, but the thing is, with the Mets, they had the same issue of injuries, but they never slowed down. So that's why I give them the props, is they probably had better bench players than we did. We had a lot of young, unproven players that had to come up, which you're going to see next year as well. Trey Turner is still being developed to probably come up next year. He'll take over the shortstop role. The big person I tell you, Chris, Paul, I told Anthony to watch out for this guy, is Lucas Giolito. He's the number 1 rated prospect in all of baseball as a pitcher. He's the number 1 guy. Had Tommy John surgery out of high school, and he's been killing it. So look out for him. So I think the Nats are going to compete for the division this year. It could come down to the final month again like it did this year. Hopefully it's a little bit closer when we enter that final month. But Anthony, let's get your opinion on the Mets.
I think that it's definitely going to be a different dynamic, because if you look at the Mets team throughout the whole season, they really didn't start picking up until the Cespedes trade, because their offense was very abysmal overall in runs, and it was their pitching that was, keeping them relevant, especially with the 3 of Syndergaard, DeGrom, and Harvey, and even Bartman at 42 years old. I think that overall the team is going to have those guys in place now going into the season, and the addition of Walker and Asdrubal Cabrera now being in the lineup, I think makes it a huge get for them, because with the Nationals at full strength going into a season, I think it changes that whole dynamic. And I just think that it's going to be a 2-headed, race for the NL East. And I think instead of it waiting for the Mets to start to be a contender till the second half and just kind of sticking around there because the pitching was keeping around, I think that all year that every game's going to count from the first series they have to the last one. I think that the Nationals and the Mets are going to be battling for the East title.
It's going to be a great division in baseball this year. I think around March is normally when we do our whole baseball preview show. So we'll get into that again. I mean, that was a pretty good show. Oh, the one guy that said that? The one guy who commented about that. Is this what your whole show's about? No. Before we head out, I want to make another special announcement. On Monday, we'll be starting a brand new podcast. Me and Anthony will be starting the Over the Top Rope podcast, which is going to be strictly for professional wrestling, WWE. Talk some TNA, New Japan, whatever. The New Japan, right?
That's,
New Japan,
that's Lukey's favorite, my son's favorite.
He likes the New Japan?
New Japan, yeah.
Because they have it on TV now a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to start that on Monday. So, everyone who likes this show, also tune into that. Me and Anthony, we always talk about wrestling outside of this. When we're on playing at spots or whatever, we're big wrestling advocates. Because on the at spots you can watch the W Network. So I think one pay-per-view we were all in the same party watching and just talking about the whole thing. It was kind of cool. So it's kind of cool to do that. So we'll be starting that on Monday. So it should be exciting for us. And I'm sure Paul will be producing as always, the best producer out there.
Yeah.
Better than any other show's producer. I'm not making a mockery of anyone right now. Just saying.
Come on,
Terrible.
man.
Terrible.
So, hey, we can do that. It's fun. So, once again, Anthony, thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you very much. It was a blast.
We'll definitely get you on again. Maybe we'll get you on for the baseball preview show. Get some insight on the whole Mets preview. We'd love to get that. So, Paul, you want to
wrap it up?
We're wrapping it up, buddy. Let's do the thing.
That sounds good to me.
Let's go Orioles.
All right. Well, so thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading the podcast. You can help us out tremendously by going to iTunes or Stitcher and giving us a rating, subscribing, and send us a comment. You can find the Shipe Sports Talk online at www.shipesportstalk.com. On Twitters, you can get us at Shipe Sports Talk, and Facebook, everything. Pretty much all the social media outlets you can find it at Shipe Sports Talk. What else? So
I got the Instagram more active now.
Okay, and if you can, and on YouTube's, on the YouTubes, you can find us there. And if we also post a podcast, did I say that already? All the podcasts you can find. If you don't catch us live on YouTube, then you'll be able to
iTunes.
catch the podcast from iTunes or Stitcher, or even onto the website. The website you'll be able to pick up.
And even if you watch on YouTube, just go on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Just give us a 5-star, give us a comment. Get us out there.
Right on.
Share with all your friends.
Yeah. Send us your comments and your questions or whatever. I'm sure Matt, the fellas, everybody, Anthony, if he comes on again for sure, would love to read it and address them on air. That's for sure.
So tune in again next week, same times, between 6:30, 7 o'clock, whenever we decide to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And then tune in Monday for the first episode of the Over the Top podcast.
Yep. And then I think, do you guys have your social stuff up already?
We're working on it now.
Okay.
We'll get more to that on Monday, so they'll hear more about that on Monday.
We'll post some. How about posting something on the Shipe Sports Talk Facebook page?
I will.
And then to direct everybody. So that's a great idea. I look forward to it.
So
it should be pretty fun.
For myself, Chris, Paul, Anthony, thanks again for joining us.
And Coach.
Thank you.
And Coach, thank you for listening out there. Everyone, take care. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
All right. Anthony, hang on. Don't sign off of Skype yet, okay?
All right.
What?
Good way to come back.
I think we should.